It's 22 minutes past 10. It's Wednesday morning, and this morning we're chatting about the effects that COVID is still having 5 years on. For many, it was a short-term illness, but for some it can become a chronic condition. It's estimated around 2 million people in the UK are still living with long COVID, experiencing a wide range of symptoms, including extreme tiredness, joint pain, dizziness, and breathing difficulties. There's no cure, no treatment that works for everyone, and to make matters worse, the number of NHS clinics for people living with long COVID has been halved. More than halved, actually. Oonagh Cousins was a Team GB rower selected to take part in the 2020 Olympics, but by the time they took place, after being delayed for a year, she contracted long COVID and had to retire from the sport. She's now an ambassador for the charity Long COVID Support and joins me now. Good morning, Oonagh.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on.
When did you first contract COVID?
Right at the beginning of the pandemic, March 2020. I thought it was just mild. I thought it was a cold. And I thought I need a few days off training. And then I just never got better, basically.
And when you go through that, like you said, you just thought a bit of a cold. There must have been a point where you went, hang on a minute, this just a bit of a cold has now been here for a while and nothing's changing. What was that moment like?
Yeah, so I think I was in a bit of denial because for weeks I kept saying I'm getting better, and I would try to return to training and it wouldn't work. And eventually, it was like October 2020, and the GB rowing team was returning to the National Training Centre after the first lockdown, and I tried to string a few sessions together and ended up crashing really, really hard. And the doctor then realised, okay, it was the doctor really that was like, Oonagh's long-term sick, and she's not going to get back for the postponed Olympics. And then once the Olympics was off the table, I started to kind of really reckon with how sick I was. And actually at that point, when I was honest with myself, I could only really do sustainably about 4 hours of basic daily tasks in a day. And I think that kind of goes to show how much denial I was in for a while, because I was trying to train while being that sick. And then I was like, okay, I'm in this for the long haul.
And I guess, when you start to realise that can take you to a really dark place.
Yeah, it was devastating. I was new to the team. The Olympics was my dream. I couldn't believe how sick I was. You just can't really. It's so hard to understand. It's like, why is my body failing me so much? And and obviously the Olympics and rowing was my dream, and that was really hard. But actually, in hindsight, what was hardest was that I was totally debilitated. I couldn't even do daily life, let alone training. Sure. And being that sick for kind of months and months, it's hard to explain how difficult that is.
And what's it like now? What effects is it still having on you now? Because as we've said, the 5th anniversary of the lockdowns is just around the corner.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a roller coaster. I had kind of 2.5 years of steady improvement, and then I ended up having a massive relapse at the end of 2022. And then again, I've kind of steadily improved, had a bit of treatment that's helped, but I'm still not better. I can't work full time. I can't exercise at all. I can't do anything, like any kind of physical activity. Anything that raises my heart rate brings on symptoms. And I think I've hit a bit of a plateau, and my feeling is that I won't ever fully recover unless there's more biomedical research and they find some treatments that I can get access to. The future's very uncertain.
And when you mentioned that you started to get better and then there was this kind of, relapse again. Does that mean that constantly you're kind of almost expecting the next thing to happen to you?
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very unpredictable. There's no doctors can really tell you what to do or not to do. Yeah. You're kind of always managing it yourself and trying to figure out. It's just so uncertain. And I thought when I had that relapse, I thought I was better, and I overdid it, and I ended up crashing really hard. And and it's still the same today. I'm kind of managing my symptoms on a daily basis, and it's just you take every day as it comes, because you don't really know what the future holds.
Tell us about Long COVID Support.
Yeah, so it's a charity that was set up right at the beginning of the pandemic to basically raise alarm and push for recognition and more research and better services, better healthcare. They've been there right from the beginning of the pandemic, pushing for progress for patients. And we're establishing ourselves. We're registered as a charity 2 years ago, and we never really thought that we'd be in this for the long haul, but we're realising that we are. And they recently published a report on the long COVID clinics and how half of them are closing, and also the ones that remain are they're falling short of the NHS commissioning guidelines, and the status of healthcare for people with long COVID is very poor.
And what do you feel like now, looking back at how it's affected you and your career?
It's really devastating. I'm turning 30 next month, and I've spent over half of my 20s sick. And before that, I was at the peak of my health. I was very fit. I was training 16 times a week. I never saw this coming. And it's just been a really tough time.
And what would you like to see? I mean, because the charity that you talk of, the long COVID support, that must be a real help to people who I'm sure at many times have felt like they're on their own with this, and that everybody else's life is continuing and returning to normal, but they feel a little bit forgotten. What would you like to see going forwards?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly been the case. There's a Facebook support group that has over 66,000 people in it. And often it's only other people who are experiencing this illness that really understand what people are going through. And it's very hard to get support elsewhere. So the charity has definitely been a lifeline to many people. Going forward, what we really need is biomedical research, and we need to find treatment for people. People want their lives back. They just want to get better, but they can't until we understand what's going on in this illness, and until we find treatments, people are going to be stuck, being sick, basically. So, and it's totally an investment. It's a worthy investment, because these people want to work, they want their lives back, they want to re-engage with society. They just need some help.
And where can people find out more about long COVID support?
www.longcovid.org, and also if you look up on Facebook, Long COVID Support Facebook group.
Oonagh, thank you for chatting to me today. Wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Now, the spokesman from the Department of Health said long COVID can have a debilitating impact on people's physical and mental health, and we are committed to ensuring there are quality services for people suffering with it in every part of the country. No single treatment currently exists for long COVID, which is why we have funded research into the condition.